Neil deGrasse Tyson is perhaps the most famous scientist of our time. He's famous for Cosmos, and now he has an idea for a new nation, but is it a good one? It's Rationalia, and it is a place that he defined in a tweet in under 140 characters, mind you, as this: Earth needs a virtual country, Rationalia, with a one-line constitution. All policy shall be based on the weight of evidence. Okay, so I think Jenna and I might have a little bit of an argument right now.
No, I was actually kidding. No, I was actually kidding about that.
I think it's based on very good principles,
right.
Which is, you know, we're looking at a government that will not pay attention to global warming, climate change, which is probably the most strong and most likely example that he's thinking of when he came up with this, which is we have an astounding amount of evidence, we have an overwhelming amount of scientists that agree that man-made global warming is happening and we need to do something about it, and yet we have a tone-deaf government, and we know there are other interests at hand that are being focused with. You could argue, you know, they are paid for. You could argue they're not as important. I mean, we get to the idea of weight.
Right.
Specifically in his tweet. And then, you know, it does make sense. If you think about, well, at first it makes sense, I mean, but we also have the idea of, you know, people with severe psychological issues or drug addictions being punished in prisons, and we know that doesn't work, and we know that empirically there are better ways to do this, and yet we don't.
Well, we have an astounding amount of stupid people here, too.
Yeah.
That's the world in general. So many stupid people. But, I mean, I think the idea of using logic rather than, you know, say religion or whatever to sort of govern. I mean, that makes sense. But then you know, if you actually used a one-line constitution like that, there are a lot of things that would fall through the cracks that just it wouldn't work. But more logic would be good. I like logic.
Of course.
And I think that's really, you know, I somehow doubt he really meant it.
I don't think he meant it like in a way.
Like, hey, we should start.
Well, because then there's like a lot of issues that come up. Because when you look at the word, I think value or weight that he said, I mean, that's a subjective term. I mean, how would one order importance? I mean, if we're looking at global warming, for instance, do we value the impact on the Earth 5 years from now, 20 years from now, 100 years from now? Which one is the most important? We also have which countries are going to be affected. Do we value those countries on how important they are, and how do we decide if a country is important or not important, which seems like a terribly inhuman thing to do.
Yeah, and it's, you know, I mean, obviously logic would really help, especially in terms of global warming and pollution. If you have something like China, my better half was in China, and while he was there this last year, the pollution was so bad you could see it from space. That's bad. And they finally said, hey, maybe we should close some factories. That might be a good idea. You know, and like, oh, look, logic. Imagine that. But I think you just can't ever define something by a one-sentence tweet.
Yeah.
Hey,
I'm sure he meant well. But if you were to put that into practicality, this might be a terrible place to live. I mean, science isn't really like, it's not a completely solid, black and white, rational window, you know, to a world. It's a valuable tool that we use in different ways to make sense of these things and to replicate these, whatever the findings are.
Yeah, and I think there has to be some sort of balance. I mean, there has to be balance with logic and with feeling, and no one's managed to do it correctly yet, and I don't think anyone ever will, but I think there always has to be a balance. I think that's important.
Yeah, well, I mean, for sure, there should be more respect given to logic, to science, to things that do actually make sense and can be proven to make sense. Maybe that's not what Rationalia says on paper, because, you know, you could interpret it different ways.
Right.
Like certain religious texts, ironically. It's weird. It's weird to get into. I mean, people are imperfect, and we can't really live in a world with exactly black and white rules, but we shouldn't live in a world that makes completely no sense either, which is where we are right now. Anyway, how do you feel about Trump's America? No.
Oh, here we go.
Would you live in Rationalia? Does Rationalia need a longer constitution than one sentence? Let us know below in the comments. Please like and subscribe for more.